Alright, so now that we understand how use effect works, let us clean this and let's just start working with a few other things. Let's display the timeline post on our home page, right? So I'm just gonna clear this. Okay, so let's start. So as you can see, when we go back into our browser, okay, I'm gonna go back. I think we were not done cleaning it up. Like, just take this out. Okay, when we go back to our browser, we should see that the page load is back again. Everything is intact with the dummy data that we had integrated into it, right? It should be here. Should be here in no time. Let me quickly refresh. Okay, PC is a bit slow. Alright, so now that it is back, we can see everything here. Let us just start displaying the timeline post here, right? So in order for us to display the timeline posts, we're going to have to make some API calls. So what we can do is, inside this use effects that we have here, we can just start making API calls, right? But let's not do that here. Let's just do it. Let's do it real quick. Then after, I'll show you, at the end of the video, I'll show you a much more efficient way for you to handle your API calls in your front-end application, right? So let us quickly say const timeline posts. Okay, then inside here, I'll set that to this, and then I'll say async. Then over here, then I'll say try catch here. Then I'll just log out the error. Alright, let's log out the error for the meantime. Then over here, I would say that let's create a const response, and then this response is going to quickly make the call. So I'm going to say what Axios. Let's import Axios. Okay, we've not imported Axios. It's also not coming out for us to import. So just gonna come here, import Axios. Wait, what? From Axios. Import Axios from Axios. Then we can come back. Let me check my mic. Okay, works. Come back here, and then I would say Axios.get. What is Axios getting? Actually, okay, let's just use this. What is Axios getting? We are going to go into the main or the base URL, that is localhost 5000 actually. Then we have API v1. Then after this API v1, we have what? Posts. And then at the end of the post, we have what? Timeline posts. But we can check, because I can't seem to remember the spelling of how I made things look like. So here, okay, it's get timeline post. Alright, I'm just gonna copy that. Okay, get timeline posts. We can go back and paste it here. Go back and paste it. I'm just going to take care of this. Now, in order for us to be able to get something based off of a user ID, I don't think this is one of the best ways to do it, and I believe that one of the best ways to do it is to take it from the params or a query, right? So in our case, you're going to take it from the params. So how do we fix that? Let me first of all delete this. We will not need it right now. Okay, sorry. So I would go into the, I think, is it the services? Let's go to the routes first. I'm going to hold control, and I'm going to click. It will take me inside. I hold control and click, and this should also take me inside. Why is it keeping this long? Alright, so it's here. So as you can see, we are taking the user ID, and we are going to take it from params, obviously, right? So I'm just going to copy this and then paste it in here, right? And then I'm going to go into the controller, the post controller here. I'm going to change this to params. Alright, so we are going to take the user ID from the request of params, then we are going to add it here. So say what, user ID. Alright, that should be done. So we'll go to the news feed basically. Now at the end here, what are we going to do? I'm quickly going to open up the database and pick up this user ID. No, this user ID, actually user ID, and then I would place it here. We've not set up authentication, that is why we are doing it straightforward like this, just to show you guys how things work in general. So you can see console.log, then if I log out res.data and we check the browser, basically we should see, oh yeah, we forgot to add await. Right, so whenever async comes, then you await it, await the call, we go back, and things should be working as we expect it to. But we have not initialized this, so let me quickly initialize it here. Okay, quickly initialize it. Okay, so when we go back to the browser, we should see, I'm gonna go into, okay, says, okay, let me refresh. Okay, let's see what comes up. Okay, this is a little weird, this is not what we're supposed to get. I'm gonna go back. Okay, yeah, so basically we are not able to connect to the database. I'm just going to go into one file inside the server side, and I'm just going to press Ctrl S to save so that we are connected to the database. Unfortunately, for my country, we do have some network issues going on. We can't really connect well to the internet due to some cables destroyed under the sea. So pardon me if I'm taking a little longer to upload, and also I'm also finding it difficult calling the APIs. Okay, so okay, I'm wondering why this thing keeps showing. Let me check. I'm gonna click on this res.data. Okay, I think I know why. I'm supposed to have the doubles here, right? So yes, that's the issue. I'm gonna come here and then add them up, and that should be it. I'm gonna go back here and refresh one more time. Alright, trying to refresh one more time. Okay, it says that there's an error. Let me check and see. Post fetch failed. Okay, yeah, it looks like my network, as I said before. I'm going to go back here and then try to reconnect to the database and go back to try again. Pardon me. Okay, pardon me for that. Okay, so as you can see, the timeline posts have been fetched. Okay, now you can see that it's inside the object name timeline post. So I'm basically going to add this. I'm going to go back to the news feed. I'm going to add timeline posts, and then when we go back here, you should see that it only brings out this object to map through, or this array of objects to map through. So what do? We want to display these objects on the page, right? But how do we do that? We first of all need a state. I'm going to say a const posts, then we'll say set posts, and then we are going to give that a use state. Going to give that a use state of an empty array basically, and then over here we can set posts to this post array, and then what we can do is we can come here and replace this posts with posts. right? Now we are going to get some errors. Let's not forget to change the key to this one, because when we come to this side, you can see that this is the ID. This is how the ID property is named, right? So that's how we are setting it. Now when we go back, we realize that we have a lot of errors because there are some things that we will not be able to read because basically they are empty, right? And that's not how we are supposed to be calling them in general. So you can see the profile picture and all some other things are undefined. So we can go into this post component here, and then we can correct a few things. So I'm quickly going to clean this. Let's not work on that first, right? I can't just clean it and just start putting in profile picture, right? So what we need is the user information, basically. So here I'm going to do another use effect that is going to help us do what the use effect that is basically going to help us get the user information. Let me check my mic to make sure it's working. Yeah, it is. Then inside this use effect, let me basically copy the same thing over so we don't have to do everything from scratch. I'm gonna go here and then copy this. Okay, I'm gonna copy this, or let me not add a use state. Let me just copy this, and then I'm going here. Oh, I mistakenly copied. Okay, let me go back to the posts, and then I would paste it here as well, give some space. Then here I'll say what, get user info. Alright, so get user info. So an async, we have this, and then we change this to what, users. And then since you are trying to find a user by the user ID coming from that particular post, we are basically going to clean this. Okay, I mean, if we go here to our routes, if we go to our user route here, you can see that to get a user by ID is just users. In this side is just users, and then the next one that follows is basically the user ID, right? So how do we set that up? I'm going to go back to post, and then I'm going to clean this because it's going to be dynamic depending on each post that is being rendered. Then I'm going to remove these normal double quotes, and I'm going to put back text because you're going to concatenate a few things. So over here I'm going to bring my $sign and then my curly braces. Then I'm going to put in posts dot user ID, because every post has a user ID property if you check through the database. Alright, cool. Now that we know this, we can create a user object. So I can say const or use state for user, right? So I can say user and set user and set user. I'm going to give that a use state, and then we are going to set that to an empty object, basically. Now that we have this object, I could say set user. Wait, what? Set user. Yeah, set user to this res.data and not anything else. So user is res.data. And if we log out the user, you should be able to see the user information. Okay, now you remember we learned a few things about use effect. Now let me initialize this get user info before I do anything else, right? So okay, get user info has been initialized. Now you can see that this post.id is going to be dynamic. It's going to change based off of every post, right? So because of that, what we want to do is we want to add it as a dependency, right? So we can see post dot user ID, because at the end of the day, anytime the user ID changes, we have to re-render, right? We have to re-render another set of user info, right? So I'm glad you understood this part. Let's now start fixing in things. So if I come and log out the user, if I come and log out user here, and we check the it would, okay, we should be able to get this user. Let me refresh. We're getting a lot of errors because we've not made certain corrections, but hopefully after these corrections things should be okay. Alright, it looks like we are not getting, okay, it says use effects is not defined. That makes sense. Alright, so now we should be able to import use effects. Okay, and what else? I hope use state. Okay, we've already imported use state. We should be able to get, let me log out the response alone. I want to log out the response alone, right? So I want to say log response because I can't seem to console.log res. Okay, now if I go back I should be able to see the response. Okay, it keeps saying profile picture can't be read. For the newsfeed, unique key, I think we already gave it to it, right? In the newsfeed here. Okay, unique key, yeah, we already gave it to it basically, so we don't have any problem with that. Let's start fixing in the users. So as you can see here, now that we've been able to call this, or let me go back and check how we arranged our data so that we make sure we are not missing anything. So over here, if I get one particular user, I bring out the data. Okay, so it's data.data basically. So if I come here and I go into this post, it's going to be what? res.data.data. Okay, which is wrong in general, but okay, so what I'm going to do is let me go back and rather correct it. Right, let's correct it. Let me go to my users controller and correct it. So I'm going to say user info should store the object value data. Okay, so now that I've been able to set this up, we can go back into the post component here and then set that to what? User info. Okay, now that we set that to user info, we should be able to collect every user info that we get, right? So let me scroll down. Okay, it looks like we're still finding problems with the connections. Let me go back here. Yeah, it's buffering, right? Like I said, the connections. So I'm going to save again so that it connects to the database again. Then we try. Very sorry for the inconvenience. It's around the country. The whole country has a network issue. So over here, you can replace this with the user object here. You can also replace this with a user object here as well. So when we go back here, okay, it says what? Bad response, internal server error. Okay, that looks like a network something. Yeah, it looks like a network issue. I'm going to refresh. Okay, we're still getting, okay, set post slash, no, this is not the right, okay, we already corrected this, so it should be in the newsfeed. Yes, then this is it. This is what we should be getting, but it looks like that the network is not being able to connect to the database. Why is this happening? says Axios is not defined. Okay, makes sense. I'm going to go into posts and I'm going to import Axios here too as well. Okay, now we should be good. Okay, now as you can see, the account has been fetched and you can see that we are displaying the username here. But as you can see, if we look through, we don't really have a profile picture because it's empty. So what we are going to be using is basically a no profile picture, right? But we are just going to set that as an all. So over here we are just going to bring this double sticks or double lines, right, to set the all condition, and then we are going to import a few images. So over here I can create a new folder called assets, right, and then I'll import a few things. I'm going to go into the downloads and then just drag and drop basically. So over here we have user.png. I'm quickly going to drag and drop it into the assets here, right. Now that we have this, I'm quickly going to come here and import it. So I'm going to import user pic from this assets slash what user.png, right. Now that we have this, I'm quickly going to come here, alright, and then when we go back to the project, you should see that it should fill up with all these default profile pictures, right. Okay, now let us start working on displaying the other data that we have. So as you can see, when we come to the post here, it's a created at, right. It's a created at. We are going to use the created at property. Now when we go back to render, you see how it appears. We are going to use a package called moment to set up that ago type of time, or that ago type, so maybe 7 days ago, 2 hours ago type of time, right. So in order for us to do that, I'm basically going to clone this terminal for the client, and then I would say npm I moment. Okay, now once we're able to install moment, I should be able to import it. So I'm going to import moment from moment. I'm going to have to put that in double quotes, but moment from moment, and then over here we can put this in a bracket like this and say, well, moment, and then after this we are going to say this dot, then we are going to say from now. Okay, it looks like our package is not being okay, it's now installing. So with this we should be able to work on that. Let's see. All right, it's going to re-render, and then we should see our time working as we expect it to be working. Right, so as you can see, a month ago, right. All right, that's awesome. Let us move on to the description. Okay, we already have the post.description. It was named as disk over here, right, so we don't have any problem with that. Then we can go to the photo too, since we do not have photos for each post at the moment. We can just import one particular photo and use that photo for basically the post that we've rendered. Then we'll handle it in the future, right. So I'm going to say test post photo. Let me say test post photo. Okay, we even have post pic here, right. So we can just use this, come here, and then just post it here. So post pic, and then you should see apply to every post, but don't worry, we would handle the image upload in the future. So now that we set the picture here, now we are left with the number of likes, right? So over here you can see that this like is a state variable, right? So over here when we look inside the database, it is actually a likes array, not a like. So we are just going to add the s to it, and then that should fix that. Let me check my mic. Okay, it works. So that should fix that. When we go back, we should see, okay, now as you can see, it has been set to the ID here instead of the number, right? So in order for us to be able to fix that, we are going to come here, right? What we're going to do is we're going to come here, and then we want to say length, right? Alright, so we want to look through the post.array.likes and say length, but we are going to get an error because it will tell us that it can't find whatever of length, right? Can't read the properties of length. Now that could be because it's not seeing it, or it's not, the post is not rendering, right? And also when you look into the database, you can also see that it's not all posts by this user ID that has an array, right? They're usually empty, right? So in order for us to be able to fix that too, what we can do is we can add this question mark, so that will say check if it is an array that contains a bunch of user IDs, then you can now bring out the length. Or if you check and then the array has been rendered, then you bring out the length, right? So it checks and then now brings out the length, okay, as you can see here, right? So now that we've been able to see or do these checks, let us go back to see. Okay, as you can see, there's nothing really to work on. We don't have any comments inside our database data, right? So we can't really do anything with that. But now we can now start working with the most efficient way, or one of the best efficient ways of handling your data display or API integrations, right? Now as you can see over here, we have this. Now if we have to keep typing this, you can see that it will be very stressful, right? So what we can do is can minimize this really quick and then come here into the SRC and then create a new folder called utils, right? Now I'm going to quickly delete this one. Okay, then inside this utils you can have the API folder here instead, right? Now with the API folder here, you can have API file, again api.js, right? Now inside here, what we can do is we can import Axios, right? So we can import Axios from Axios, right? Alright, it's here. Okay, now that we've been able to import it, what do? We want to first of all create the base URL, right? So we can say something like const API should be equal to, then we can say Axios or Axios dot create, right? Now when we create, we open up the brackets and then we create an object inside. What object is it going to be? We're going to say base URL, and then this base URL is going to contain a string of the URL that we would need. So http what localhost what 5000 slash API slash v1. Alright, now that we have this, let's not forget this. So now it is actually a link now that we can use. Now that we have this, let's not forget we can also export it as well, just in case we need it somewhere else, right? So now that we have this, right, what we can do is we can also create a function to get the post, right, inside the news feed. So over here that we have this get timeline post here, we can create a function to do that, right? So I'm basically going to use this user ID as a parameter, right? So I'm going to go to api.js here. I'm going to export const what get timeline posts, and then this is basically going to be a function. Okay, let's fix this thing here. That should be an equal to, right? So now with this function, what we want to focus on doing is I'm going to say API dot what get API, right, dot get, and then what are we getting? we are going to get it from where? We're going to get it from get timeline post, right? So if we go into the newsfeed here, we can see this. We can say get timeline posts basically, or we can say posts.get timeline post, obviously. So post.get timeline post, and we can copy this, or let's cut it out, right? Then we come into the api.js, and then we put it here. And just clean this. Now over here we can pass in the user ID parameter, right? Then after, we can now fix it inside here. Okay, so what I can do is, with my $sign and the curly braces, and I can pass the user ID. Don't worry, we'll fix it. We'll come here, change the double quotes to backticks, change this one also to backticks as well. Then once we are done with this, okay, we should be able to save this. What error do we have still? We should be able to save this. I mean, I'm gonna clear this, right? So it can be as straight as this. That's right. So exactly however we want it to be like. So now that we have this, we can now come here inside our news feed here. Okay, inside the news feed here, then we can create this res, okay, here. Then over here I can say what get timeline posts from the utils, or that function. Then inside I'm going to wrap it inside this string. Now what string is it going to? It's going to be the ID, obviously, right? But like I said before, if we're able to work on authentication, then we'll make it dynamic. But right now, let's just pass in this ID for the meantime, right? Now that we've been able to pass this ID out, the data that we are getting, we are setting it to this post, and then when we go back to check, you should realize that everything should work out as we expected it to be. So as you can see, even when I refresh, it should come back as we expect it to be. All right, let me check my mic. Alright, it still works. Okay, so you can see that it comes out as we expect it to be, right? Now we can basically go to this one and do the same thing for it as well. You can go to the posts here, and then as you can see, this one also has its post.user ID that we need to work with. So what can we do? We can say what get user info. So let's go to API here. Let's copy this line, and then I'm basically going to paste, and then this is also going to be the user ID, but we say get what? Get user, or let's make it get user data, right? Get user data here. Then it's going to take this user ID, then we are going to change this to users, then we'll make this what? We'll take this out, and then it should be like this. So what we'll do now is, I want to go to the post here, and I'll clean this one really quickly. I'm going to clean it, and I'll see what get user data, right? Get user data is going to import at the top here, right? Then we pass in what do we pass in the post dot what user ID. Okay, then once you're able to do that, you should realize that it will log it out like it is logging it out here, and then we still have everything intact as we expected. So thank you very much for getting to this part of the video. In the next one, you're going to understand how to work with context API. So hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Should be pretty interesting too. Bye.